Super quick video today on why I believe Palantir needs Wall Street. Here's why. Alright, I hope the rain in the background isn't too loud, but super quick video today. As I said, I just want to explain why I think Palantir actually needs Wall Street much more than it believes it necessarily does. So let's just have a look at the top institutional holders. We haven't actually seen that much change if you exclude ARK Invest dropping Palantir. If we look at the historical chart of percentage of insider shares held and overlay it with the number, or rather the percentage of float held and the number of institutional owners, they all follow the same trend as you'd expect, which we saw start to level out at the end of last year and beginning of this year, and even take a turn lower with the market sell-offs. So this is not exactly the trend we'd like to see. Yes, it's good that on balance, Palantir's institutional ownership is flat. We had Cathie Wood exit, of course, one of the more large institutional owners. That's definitely worth reconciling. However, seeing this stock fall so significantly, cutting in half or a third of its value from wherever you start to look at it, you really would want to see a lot more institutional ownership at these levels. Now, why haven't we seen that? Well, I think it's a result of a few things, and largely it ties back to the last couple earnings releases did not instill confidence in Wall Street or institutions at all. And while Palantir stock certainly has been impacted by the macro environment, I really do think it would still be much lower and still be underperforming its sector if macro was flat or even higher, because of the last couple reports, not just because of the numbers, but also because of the manner in which they were conveyed by Palantir's management team. I made a video last year on why Wall Street was worried about Palantir. There certainly was a lot to be worried about looking back, especially when it comes to the SPAC strategy, the relentless focus on insider selling, and the relentless focus on stock-based compensation. There is so much Palantir could do better in regards to answering and clearing up these questions. They always come up on the earnings calls, and it's not enough just to answer them once. Sure, Palantir touched on these in their original investor day back in 2020, but to really get the point across, they need to be constantly defending themselves. Even though some attacks may be unjustified, Palantir needs to be able to defend themselves. And unless and until Palantir can control the narrative around it as a dominant and worthwhile investment for the medium to long term, and confidently answer key questions around stock-based compensation not being as big an issue as everyone thinks it will be, and growth rate slowing not being an issue, and margins dropping not being an issue, we can expect Wall Street as a whole not to step in and buy up Palantir stock. So, but why is this a mistake? Why should Palantir care about Wall Street? What's wrong with just letting the stock languish where it is? In fact, that often lowers the risk, that lowers the pressure, and that lowers the expectations, such that beating expectations is a lot easier. Well, you see, without Wall Street there to step up and support Palantir has a much bigger problem. And it all comes back to their stock-based compensation. Not the dilution itself, but the issuance of its shares as compensation to employees. You see, Palantir uses stock-based compensation as a means of valuable compensation because they give out restricted stock units and say, this will be worth so much more in the future. But as an employee, when you see the stock falling month after month after month with no end in sight, I'm not saying that's my opinion, the morale certainly drops in terms of Palantir's ability to use stock-based compensation as this holy grail for the hiring of its employees. Now, don't get me wrong, many, if not all other companies that have this strategy are going to run into this issue as well. But I really think Palantir could do a lot to convince Wall Street to give it another look. I really think Palantir should not disregard Wall Street's opinion of it simply because it has cash on the balance sheet, doesn't need to do a stock offering or anything like that. There's really a lot more going on here, and I think Palantir should be convincing its investors, not in a malicious way, but in a way that actually makes sense, to tell the story about Palantir with real numbers, quantitatively and qualitatively, about what matters and how they see the future playing out. That way, everyone that cares can get on board, and everyone that doesn't can just move along. But Palantir right now has a problem in the investing community, and I happen to think it's they're not taking Wall Street serious enough. But that's just my opinion. I could be totally wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time.